What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the PT Coffee Cast, brought to you by The Movement. My name is Dalton, and alongside me today is my beautifully bearded friend, William. William, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good. I had a bit of an observation. I feel like your socks should be on my ankles and my socks should be on your ankles. Like based on the shoes.
Yeah, tell me more.
Like, the tonality, right?
Yeah.
Like this kind of goes with these shoes.
It does.
And these kind of go with this shoe.
It would.
It's just funny how that happened.
Should we switch?
Maybe after the pod, we'll do a little swap.
I'll wear one of yours, you wear one of mine.
A/B testing.
Yeah. All about that A/B testing. What's going on, guys? Welcome back. We're super pumped to have you for another episode. If you aren't subscribed to the podcast, make sure you subscribe on your podcast platforms. Make sure you check out the YouTube channel so you can see if Will's observation is correct. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments of the YouTube channel. Do you think that Will's socks should be on my body and my socks should be on Will's body so that it goes better with our shoes? What do you guys think? Let us know. But yeah, if you want to learn more about the mentorship as well, make sure you go over to movementmentorship.com. We have all mentorship stuff there. But we're going to get into our episode today. We're going to talk about the topic of beliefs, which is a big thing in the world of physiotherapy, but also just as humans. We all have beliefs. It's something that I'm very personally interested in learning more about. You may not know this about me, but I like to reflect a lot, and so I like to think a lot about these kinds of things. And I've been thinking a lot about my beliefs and why I believe them and those kind of things and trying to break those down. And I think it's an important thing to think about, but it translates a lot over to physio. So today we're going to talk about beliefs. We're going to give you scenarios of what we think is a good way to handle beliefs and not a good way to handle talking or exploring someone's beliefs, and let you guys decide what you think is the better option. So we're going to put our acting caps on again. I think, disclosure, as you can see, we don't know it all. So we're not saying we're perfect at this. These are things that we're learning and we're trying to implement and we're trying to explore. So don't take this as gospel, but these are things that we're exploring personally in our lives and with our team and with our clients. So always open to feedback, guys. But you want to just dive into the whole scenarios, or do you have anything you want to?
I think we dive in. We've got two scenarios, right?
We got two scenarios.
Or I guess same scenario.
Same scenario, two ways of handling it.
Yeah. And then we're going to kind of debrief.
Do a little debrief on it.
Yeah.
All right. So
do
we set the context of what the story, the situation is?
Sure.
All right.
Do you want me to do that?
You do it.
Okay. So the situation is I'm going to be the client, Dalton's going to be the physiotherapist, and I'll just say the topic of conversation, and then we can kind of go from there.
Sweet.
Okay, so yeah, Dalton, I've hurt myself a few times, and it seems like it always happens with barbells. So what I'm thinking is I'm just not gonna use barbells anymore because it seems like I hurt myself every time. So risk is not really worth the reward, and I'm just gonna use free weights.
So you're not gonna use barbells anymore?
No. What do you think that I should be?
I don't know if that's such a good idea.
What do you mean?
Well, barbells, they're very effective to, helping people get stronger and, build muscle and build strength. And I don't know if it's a great idea to not deadlift anymore.
Well, I keep hurting myself, so it's why am I gonna just keep doing it?
But what's your form look like?
I mean, I put a lot of. I think my form's pretty good.
Well, you must be doing something wrong with your form because barbells are really good for building strength. So, we might want to look at your form because it's probably your form and not the barbells.
Well, I really don't like them anyway. So, we can try that, but
But do you know how good they are for you?
no, I'm not sure. I've read different views. You know, I've read mixed opinions. I think is
Well,
so I feel.
You've seen a lot of the really jacked people. They all use barbells.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But then look at Ronnie Coleman.
Well, Ronnie Coleman, that's a
Is
different...
that how I want to end up?
It's a different...
It's just how I'm thinking. Yeah.
Well, I don't necessarily think that's the best idea, but maybe we try going through the barbell and just see like if we can fix your form so that you don't hurt yourself anymore.
Got it. Well, I guess we'll give it a try.
And see.
Oh, I was feeling so uncomfortable.
Were you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Dude, this reminds me of I did an improv class once.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And it was the most uncomfortable thing that I've ever done.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was that recent?
It was like within the last like year and a half.
Cool. Oh,
Yeah.
my gosh.
So it made me think about this. But, obviously we're kind of enhancing, embellishing some of these things for like, comedic effect or delivering home the point. Like, I don't think maybe that's how someone would respond, but maybe it is how they would respond. But let's break that down. Like before we go into the next scenario, maybe we break this one down and then we talk about the next one. Yeah. Come back to like serious mode. What do you think about that interaction?
It felt unnecessarily tense, like we were adversarial.
Yeah.
Like we were on opposite ends, kind of jabbing back and forth, like almost like a verbal sparring session.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it felt. And I think like you even notice like we're kind of interrupting each other. Like it's not moving in a very collaborative way.
Yeah.
That's how it felt to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's like that verbal sparring idea is a good way to put it. Like you can catch yourself when you get going in a conversation and that's happening. It's not productive. And I think in that scenario, that's really what was happening there. And it was immediately like you put something on the table that I don't agree with. And then I'm immediately telling you why I don't agree with that and put my perspective on it back on you. And in that situation, I think it's enhanced as like you're more worried about saying your next thing to prove your point versus like actually like listening to what the other person's telling you and the information that they're giving you. And that's where like that back and forth goes a lot.
You almost could like I think I was doing this. I don't know how good my acting is, but I was trying to actually be in the moment, but like you're kind of like body language is sort of, you're kind of like almost like putting your shields up, like I'm furrowed brow, right? Like questioning.
Yeah.
Like it's a very like, it seems like defenses are up, guards are up.
Yeah, and it's hard to really elicit the same responses because we're obviously acting in this situation, but you guys could probably relate to times where like you and your clients, the tension and the, what's the word I'm looking for? The intensity is building. You can feel that it's becoming more intense. The conversation's becoming more intense. It's elevating. They're maybe getting more animated. They're talking maybe a little bit more stern or loudly, and then you're talking a little bit more stern or loudly, and like you guys are all elevating up and are getting to this very high peak. Like a lot of times those situations happen when I find you're just trying to put your belief on the individual and they're trying to put their belief on you, and that's not necessarily a productive way.
The way I kind of visualize that is like two walls, and each time you're just stacking another brick on the wall, and you're just ending up with two big fortresses that are not gonna be crossed over.
You're both like trying to shout over the wall.
Exactly. Like my point. And it's like you're not gonna reach any valuable conclusion, even if we do go out and look at the form. Like it's coming from such a negative place that I'm gonna leave here and be like, I'm not doing that.
Right. Even if I'm giving you a very productive tip.
Yeah.
Right. or education or advice. It's like
Exactly.
you're just gonna be like, well, screw that guy. Like,
Yeah, because it's like going at my like ego
yeah,
and who I am and my beliefs,
yeah,
and you're just sort of dunking on them.
yeah, yeah. And I think like um, this happens, and it happens to me sometimes without even realizing it. And like I think one of the reasons we're doing this is like try to catch yourself when that does happen, because we're not above that as humans. Like we're gonna experience that as well, and so recognizing that it's happening when it's happening and then transitioning out of it to make it more productive, I think is a key thing to
Yeah.
to catch yourself in, if you get caught there sometimes, you know.
Yeah, and I do think there is a difference between this kind of like clinical scenario and depending on your relationship with the person, you may be able to be a little more like me and you. Like I can be like, hey, have you thought about this? It's a bit different than what you're thinking.
There's a lot of factors that influence like the conversation around the beliefs, but in this situation, in most situations, like you're coming out of a place of like, it's different too because you're holding a position of power in some sense because you're the medical professional, you have the knowledge, they are coming to you for help. So there's already a different level of dynamic and hierarchy there, which like my goal is, even though I know that I have that, is always trying to like make that gap as small as possible, or at least make it like feel that way with the client. And I liken it to like bringing them on the same side of the table as you, instead of sitting across the table and bickering back and forth or having a conversation back and forth, because then from there the most productive conversations can happen, versus like the difference is like you don't really have that great of trust with this person. You don't know their beliefs that much. Maybe you know a little bit because you've talked, but this could be the first time you're meeting this person. It's different between you and I. I know a lot of your beliefs. I've known you for 7+ years. It's easier to do that, but
and my intentions. Like when you're just meeting someone, you don't necessarily know their intentions.
And that's the most case, right? So like having to learn how to navigate that situation, I think, is like super important. All right, do we go into the good attempt here?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go.
Okay. Yeah, so I've been working out and I've hurt myself a few times over the last couple of years. It seems to be every time I lift with barbells. So my thinking is just gonna eliminate lifting with barbells and just lift dumbbells and use cable machines.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I agree. I think like lifting, doing cables and using dumbbells is a great way, to be strong. And I think you could definitely continue to implement that. And I could see where, the barbell could be a bit challenging and may have potentially led to some of the struggles that you're having, which, could lead to, you being fearful. Could you tell me a little bit more about like your experience with the barbell and like, why maybe you're a bit more fearful about it?
Well, I think like I'm a little bit uncertain about some of the technique, and it's hard, like when I'm like deadlifting, like I have a hard time like kind of navigating like my shins, and it just feels super challenging. And I guess that's why I'm like, is it worth it, given that it's hard? So I guess I'm just not sure. What do you think? Like, do you think like I'm on the right track, or do you think I should maybe think about it more? I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing that you're thinking about it, and it's not uncommon for me to hear people talk about the position of their shins being challenging and the movement feeling a bit awkward. And I think your fear of injury using a barbell specifically for deadlifting is fair because, let's be honest, we all know a lot of people who have hurt their back deadlifting. And so I think that barbell movement gets blamed for a lot of the reasons that people have back pain, when in reality it might not necessarily be the barbell and the movement. There could be some other factors influencing the reason that results in injury, and that's worth exploring. But I can see how the fear of the barbell comes in place because of the common scenario we see of deadlifting up with a barbell in pain.
Right. So do you think I might be like blaming it on the wrong thing potentially?
Yeah, potentially. There could be more things. I don't think it's right or wrong. I just think that there might be more things that could influence that scenario. And typically, and we can talk more about this, and we can go through some stuff. Typically, what I find, it's less the barbell and even the movement, and more the preparation and load tolerance of tissue. And a
Right.
lot of times, people are just building up a little bit too fast. They overload those tissues, and then you get a response. And that sometimes is back pain.
So do you think, sorry to cut you off, sir, but do you think there is benefit to trying to figure that out and use barbells?
Yes.
Like what do you think is the overall benefit?
Yeah, I think that there is a benefit to using barbells. I'm personally a bit biased to using barbells just because I've used them in the past. We use them a lot here. We use them in our group strength class where I've watched people go from never using a barbell before and being similarly fearful of a barbell to lifting weights that they've never thought possible, and that transformation is really cool. So I think there's value in the transformation of feeling empowered and strong lifting a barbell, and you can also get the benefits of improving your strength. And we can do that a little bit more easily through a barbell because you can load more weight on the bar, which allows for you to get stronger. Now, with that being said, you can get strong using any implement that you want, and we can do that. We can show you how to do that, but I do think that there is some value to using a barbell because I've seen how positively it can influence not only someone's strength, but their empowerment when doing something that they didn't think they could do before. And I think that might be something worth exploring. What do you think?
Yeah, like as we talk about it, I'm pretty young to just be eliminating a total implement, from my life, and like maybe it's worth trying to figure it out so that I have more options.
Yeah. Would you be opposed to like going out in the gym and like going through the deadlift, and I could give you some thoughts on like maybe how you're moving and then see if there's anything that we could optimize to like improve your confidence with using the barbell?
Yeah, let's do it.
End scene. All right, what do we think about that?
Seemed a heck of a lot more positive.
Definitely.
That was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it was a different style. You agreed with me at the beginning, and I think that was kind of, it completely had the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And that sort of set the tone for the rest of the conversation because I was like, oh, you're not necessarily like disagreeing, like you're understanding my perspective, and then we're kind of going from there versus disagreeing and then having a back and forth. It was more like we were working together to talk about it.
Yeah. And so like, I was talking at the start of the podcast how I've been trying to learn a little bit more about this. I'm very interested in it. And so I recently am reading this book, and this is where they talked about this idea. And so the book is written by a guy called, his name's Stephen Bartlett. He has a podcast called The Diary of a CEO. It's massive. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. He wrote a book, and he interviews a ton of people, and someone he interviewed was someone talking about beliefs. And in the book, he talks about how you can influence people's beliefs and some of the things you shouldn't do and some of the things you should do. And one of the big things that immediately will shut down any opportunity of exploring someone's beliefs is disagreements. There's like research to support the responses of your brain when someone does disagree with what your belief is you immediately shut down, even whether or not you are cognitively aware of it or consciously aware of it or not. And then it actually can result in you holding on tighter to your beliefs. And so that disagreements piece is something that you want to avoid so that doesn't happen, right? And then the things that he talked about, which I tried to implement in the scenario that we just did there, and you guys can maybe go back and listen to this after we talk about it, but the things that he talks about based off of this researcher that he spoke with was always agreeing, and then you start to talk about maybe some of the things that you don't necessarily agree with from that belief. So instead of me being like, you don't want to use barbells? Like, I think you should use barbells. That's immediately disagreeing versus what I did in the other scenario was, oh, I agree that using those other implements is a great way to get strong, and I can see how you may be fearful of using a barbell because, right? So now I'm in agreement with you instead of disagreeing, and that's like a good starting point to go from. And then some of the other tactics they talk about is having someone deeply explain their belief. So questioning them on why they believe what they believe and have them try to explain that belief out. Because what they find is oftentimes those beliefs are built off of narratives or things that aren't necessarily true. It could be the case, right? And when someone tries to explain their belief, it actually shows them that they actually might not know that idea as much as they thought, because now they're verbalizing it out loud and they're kind of like, they're realizing like, oh, maybe I don't have as much backing here, or maybe I do, right? It can go in both directions. And so that's when I kind of asked you to tell me a little bit more about why you're fearful of using the barbell, right? Because that's going to dive deeper into like you explaining your belief. And then they talk about positively introducing the new belief in the most positive way possible. And so that would then be like, you know, using the barbell and not the fact of you being fearful of it, and like trying to introduce that in the most positive way, which I tried to do by saying, hey, I've seen people and we've worked with people who have had good improvements using a barbell in a positive light, right? And then the last piece they talk about is then having that person implement that belief and gain confidence in that belief by doing it. And then that's where, from that standpoint, it's like, hey, let's go out and do the barbell deadlift. Let's go through it. And then if they're on board, then having them do that thing more to get confident that the barbell isn't something they need to be fearful of. And so those are kind of the things that he talked about in this book. And it really like sparked a moment in my mind because like I'm always thinking about how we implement things here. And it fired me up because the way that we've positioned ourselves at the movement, I think very much can enhance that scenario. And I'm not saying we need to be out here changing everyone's beliefs, but a lot of times people come in with a belief that is very much not serving them in the way that they want, in a way that's positive, and we need to navigate that. And I think that's what we do all the time.
And I think like the interesting thing about that particular example, and I think it applies to many different conversations in that, is that belief had some limited, had like a limited nature. Like it wasn't necessarily like entirely negative, but just we're trying to like expand it, you know, so that person can have a more well-rounded approach to their health. Because when you agree with me, it's not like, I think our initial instinct is almost always to just disagree with the overarching main point, when the reality is there is a lot of common ground. You don't have to use barbells. Yeah. You can use any implement you want. Yeah. But there might be value to diving deeper into that. Mm-hmm. And why just eliminate the options entirely, right? That's the main thing. And so you actually like, when you actually find the things you do agree on, you're not just making up that you agree. Usually you do agree.
Yeah, you're not manipulating the scenario, right? But even in that scenario, it's like I don't necessarily agree that the barbell is something that is bad or that you should be fearful of, right? But I'm not going to say I don't agree with that, right, because that's going to shut them down. But I do agree with the idea of being fearful of the barbell, and I do agree with the idea of being able to use other implements to get stronger. Totally. That's totally true.
It's like against your natural instinct to look for those things. Yeah. And that's where, as like a professional, you have to train yourself to look for those things. Right. They're there most of the time. For example, like someone being afraid of moving after hurting their back is completely reasonable. They shouldn't be, but it's completely reasonable for them to have that response. In fact, we probably would have the same response, right? And so, like, you have to, I think, train yourself to be like, oh, I need to identify where I can relate to this person and agree with them versus following that initial reaction that is so natural to be like, you should be moving.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is not wrong.
It's not wrong.
But it's not going to lead to the best success of helping this client potentially.
It's the approach to get there.
And the thing with this whole scenario is, and a lot of times I've tried to come from these positions of like, my goal isn't necessarily to prove myself right. It's like, if this whole scenario ended up in you not wanting to deadlift, cool. I'm good with that. But exploring that belief and planting seeds and talking about it is a positive impact on that person, because they shouldn't be fearful of that for some of the reasons that we know aren't true. And then at least you're giving them the information to make the decision for themselves. And then if they decide not to, it's like, cool. Maybe 5 years down the road, they'll be like, hey, I want to try deadlifting because now I don't feel as fearful. And hey, what Will talked about or Dalton talked about, that makes sense. I get it. You know, so like even in that moment, you're not trying to be like, all right, we need them to deadlift. It's like, that doesn't really matter that much, unless it's like, there's times where it's like significantly impacting that person's life, and like all you can do is try to show them, and then it's ultimately up them to decide. It's never really going to be on you to do that. Like,
right. Our role is to provide the environment where the door is open to have those explorative conversations and experiences, right?
Yeah.
The door should be open for that, not closed, right?
Totally.
That's it.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty good. Honestly, for our, like, what was that? Maybe our third attempt at like some role play on this podcast. Pretty good.
It's becoming a thing.
Yeah, we did remember when we did the analogies?
Oh yeah.
That was like a year or so ago.
Yeah.
That was like one of our first real goes at it.
Yeah, we're working on it. We got to take a couple classes
maybe we do an improv class.
Yeah, that would be funny.
All right, guys, that's all we got for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. If you aren't subscribed to the podcast, make sure you head over to your podcast platforms and subscribe so you don't miss out on any episodes. Head over to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can see our beautiful faces, our socks, all that good stuff. We're trying to get the subscribers on our YouTube channel to 500 this year. It's going up. Thank you to anyone who's subscribed. You know, we've gotten up to about 100, and I think we're at 118 subscribers right now. At the start of this year, we started at like 99 to 100. So hey, we're moving up. We're getting some increases in those subscribers. So appreciate you guys. If you haven't, head over there, check it out. There's some fun stuff going on over there. We'd love to have you. And then if you guys want more about the mentorship, check out the mentorship, themovementmentorship.com, for all things mentorship there. You can schedule a call to chat with me a bit more about it if you are interested in joining the mentorship. But that's all we got. As always, stay caffeinated. Peace.